Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and it's time once again for another entry into my Halloween horror series for October 2011. And it also will allow me to wrap up a series of reviews that I've been doing on Hammer horror films, the original trilogy that started the tradition of the Hammer horror film. And this review is of The Horror of Dracula, which is the second of three movies that were loose remakes of the old Universal classics featuring Frankenstein, the Mummy, and Dracula. Like those other movies, it features Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in starring roles. It was directed by Terence Fisher and was written by Jimmy Sangster. And like those movies, it sort of plays kind of fast and loose with the original source material. It borrows elements from the Universal movies. It borrows elements from the original novel by Bram Stoker. But basically, it kind of does its own thing. The story, and you probably know the story of Dracula pretty well if you're at least even remotely interested in horror at all. But this one does throw a couple of curveballs at you. Jonathan Harker goes to Castle Dracula, just like pretty much every other telling of this story. But in this case, he goes completely aware of who Dracula is. He's going there to kill him. Things don't quite work out the way that he thinks they should. And to sort of get revenge for Jonathan Harker trying to kill him, Dracula goes back to Jonathan Harker's hometown and pursues his fiancée and then goes after his friends. Although he does not know that Jonathan Harker had a friendship with Dr. Van Helsing, who is played by Peter Cushing. And Van Helsing knows what happened to Jonathan Harker and then goes on the trail of Dracula, trying to prevent him from murdering or turning any other people into vampires. Very basic, kind of threadbare version of the plot. But one of the things that's cool about The Horror of Dracula is it jumps in to the action with both feet. It's fast. It's very briskly paced. It clocks in at 81 minutes. Things get going right away. There's not a lot of exposition. If you're familiar with the story, you know Dracula is a vampire. This doesn't set up a whole lot of stuff trying to explain what vampires are. It gives the audience credit for knowing stuff ahead of time, and that's a kind of a cool thing. I'd like to see more movies do that. There's a lot of movies that are even made today where you know the character, you know the source material, and the movie feels that it has to explain everything to everybody. And Horror of Dracula, that's not the case, and that's one of its credits, one of the things that I really liked about it. And one of the other cool things about this movie is Christopher Lee's portrayal of Dracula, where Bela Lugosi was kind of a strange portrayal. You know, he had the weird accent, and he seemed sort of otherworldly, and he had the ability to change into, bats and wolves and mist and all that kind of stuff. This portrayal of Dracula kind of throws all that by the wayside. You don't ever see Dracula turning into a bat. He never turns into a cloud of mist. But he's very physical. He's sort of a menacing presence physically, and I think that has a lot to do with the physical size of Christopher Lee, because he's such an imposing figure on camera, something that was magnified a lot more in The Mummy than this movie, but this Dracula is just more physical, more athletic, more aggressive, and that's kind of a cool thing to see in a portrayal of Dracula. The performances by Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing are top-notch. Even though Christopher Lee doesn't say a whole lot in this movie, in fact, he only talks to one character on camera in this film at all, he's just got, like I said, his physical presence and the way he carries himself on camera is just incredible. Van Helsing, as played by Peter Cushing, he's kind of driven to kill Dracula. Peter Cushing puts a lot of zest into the role. As far as the performances go, they're all pretty good in this movie. Michael Gough, who plays Arthur Holmwood, who is the brother of Jonathan Harker's fiancée Lucy, and eventually teams up with Van Helsing to sort of hunt down Dracula. His performance is a little melodramatic, a little stiff. It's not bad, it's just one of the things that it sort of gives you something to compare and contrast versus Lee and Cushing in this movie, because he's not quite up to where they are. This is a film that spawned 8 sequels after its release, so it was incredibly influential on the path and the direction of Hammer after its release in 1958. So, and a lot of people, according to some of the things I've read, there are some people who consider this the greatest horror film ever made. I think that's stretching it a little bit. It's very effective. It's very well done. It's got a great pacing. It may seem a little tame by today's standards, but for its time, I think it was probably pretty shocking to see, the difference between the Bela Lugosi Dracula and the Christopher Lee Dracula. And of course, like there are remakes today of movies that are considered classics, this is a movie that introduced the character of Dracula to a lot of people, and this was the first time they'd ever seen Dracula on screen, so this was very influential. So if I had to give it a rating, I'm not going to call it the greatest horror film ever made. Like I said, I think that's stretching it quite a bit. I would give it a 9 out of 10, though. I think it's a really solid film. And if you like, you want to dip into the classics for Halloween this year, I would definitely say you can't go wrong with the horror of Dracula. It's not gory. I wouldn't call it family friendly, but it's well worth seeing this Halloween season. And so that concludes my Hammer horror trilogy reviews. I've got another, and maybe some more Halloween horror reviews coming up. I said I was only going to do 4 for the month of October, and here it is, October 9th, and I'm already done with number 3. So you may see some more horror reviews this month that I will throw into my Halloween series. But as always, feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check out all my other reviews and videos here on YouTube. And thanks again for watching, everybody. Take it easy.